Welcome back, guys. Picture this. It's 11:40 at night. You're driving home after dinner. Maybe you had one drink, maybe two. You see flashing lights in your mirror. You pull over. The officer walks up and says, "Have you had anything to drink tonight?" You answer fast because you think being honest will help. Just a couple beers. Now the officer hears an admission. The body camera records it. The report starts building before you even realize what's happening. Then comes the real trap. Step out of the vehicle. A few minutes later, the officer says something most drivers do not understand until it's too late. If you refuse this test, your license can be suspended immediately. Now you're stuck wondering, can they legally do that? Should you take the test? What are you actually required to do? And what mistake gets people suspended faster than almost anything else during a DWI stop? Because most drivers think the biggest danger is the criminal charge. Sometimes it isn't. One piece of knowledge can change how a situation ends for you. Subscribe now so you're prepared. Then share this video and tell me what you think about it in the comments. Sometimes the fastest punishment is losing your license before you ever step into a courtroom. And tonight, we're breaking down the DWI mistake that causes that to happen every single day. The biggest mistake is not understanding the difference between roadside tests and chemical tests after arrest. Most people think all tests are the same. They are not, and confusing them can cost you your driving privileges almost immediately. Here's how the trap usually works. The officer suspects impairment. Maybe they smell alcohol. Maybe they say your lane position looks suspicious. Maybe your eyes look red. Maybe you admitted drinking. Now they begin gathering evidence. The first thing many officers ask for is a roadside sobriety test. Can you follow my finger? Can you walk heel to toe? Can you stand on one leg? A lot of people think these tests are mandatory. In many states, they are not. That matters because these roadside exercises are designed to generate evidence. They are subjective. Officers are trained to look for clues of impairment. And nervousness alone can make sober people fail. Uneven pavement matters. Age matters. Medical conditions matter. Anxiety matters. But here's where people make mistake number one. They start talking too much while trying to explain themselves. "Officer, I'm just tired. I have bad knees. I only had 2 drinks. I'm nervous." Every extra sentence gives the officer more observations to write down. Slurred speech, confusion, admission of drinking, lack of coordination. Instead, keep your responses calm and minimal. You can say, "Officer, I prefer not to answer questions," or "I choose to remain silent." That phrase matters because silence alone can sometimes be interpreted differently than clearly invoking your rights. "I choose to remain silent" makes your position clear without escalating the situation. And notice what it does not do. It does not argue. It does not insult the officer. It does not resist. That distinction matters. Now let's get to the mistake that gets licenses suspended fast: the roadside test refusal. This is where many drivers accidentally destroy their own case. In most states, when you get a driver's license, you agree to what's called implied consent laws. That means if you are lawfully arrested for suspected impaired driving, refusing a chemical test like a breath, blood, or urine test can trigger an automatic license suspension. Sometimes immediately, sometimes before the criminal case is even resolved. That surprises people because they think refusing automatically protects them. Not always. The roadside handheld breath test and the official post-arrest chemical test may be treated differently depending on the state. That distinction is critical. A driver may legally refuse certain roadside tests in one state, but face automatic suspension for refusing the official chemical test after arrest. And this is exactly why people get trapped. They refuse everything without understanding which refusal carries automatic penalties. Now listen carefully. This does not mean you should blindly agree to everything. It means you should understand what the officer is asking for. Ask calmly, "Is this a voluntary roadside test, or are you ordering an official chemical test under implied consent laws?"
That question matters because it forces clarification. It also shows you're trying to understand the legal basis for the request, rather than simply being combative. But another huge mistake happens right after that. People start arguing constitutional law on the roadside. I know my rights. You can't do this. This is illegal. That almost never helps in the moment. The roadside is not the courtroom. You do not win DWI cases by debating the officer next to traffic at midnight. You win later through legal procedure, evidence review, motions, and attorneys. Your goal during the stop is damage control. Stay calm, stay respectful, do not physically resist, do not make sudden movements, and do not talk yourself into deeper trouble. Here's another major mistake: trying to explain away intoxication symptoms. The officer says, "Your eyes are red shot." You answer, "Yeah, because I've been drinking." That admission just became evidence. Instead, if you choose to speak at all, keep it neutral and short. You can say, "I prefer not to answer questions without legal counsel." That works because it invokes your right to counsel and reduces the chance of accidental admissions. Notice the wording: not hostile, not dramatic, just clear. And here's another trap people miss: consent searches. Sometimes during a DWI stop, officers may ask to search the vehicle. Mind if I take a quick look inside? Many people say yes because they think refusing looks suspicious, but consent removes an important legal protection. If you voluntarily allow the search, you may limit later arguments about whether it was lawful. Instead, stay polite and direct. "Officer, I do not consent to searches." That sentence matters because it preserves your legal position while still avoiding confrontation. And if the officer searches anyway, do not interfere physically. Do not grab the door. Do not block them. Say clearly, "I am not resisting, but I do not consent." That phrase is important because it separates non-consent from obstruction. A lot of roadside encounters get worse because drivers turn verbal disagreement into physical resistance. Never do that. Another mistake that rapidly escalates DWI encounters is sudden movement. People start reaching for wallets before being asked. They lean under seats. They dig through glove compartments quickly. From the officer's perspective, uncertainty creates danger. Move slowly. Narrate what you are doing. "My registration is in the glove box. My wallet is in my back pocket." That keeps the interaction safer for everyone. Now let's talk about the emotional mistake that ruins many stops: panic. The moment people hear possible DUI or step out of the vehicle, they mentally spiral. Then they overshare, they ramble, they contradict themselves, they become aggressive, or they try humor. Bad idea. An officer investigating impairment is paying attention to speech patterns, coordination, emotional swings, and confusion. Everything becomes evidence. That is why calm silence is often safer than nervous explanations. And here's something else many people misunderstand. Being polite does not mean waiving your rights. You can be respectful while still protecting yourself legally. For example, "Officer, I will comply with lawful orders." That phrase matters because it signals cooperation without volunteering evidence. Or, "Am I being detained or am I free to go?" That question clarifies whether the stop is continuing. If the officer says you are free to go, leave calmly. If they say you are detained, do not argue on the roadside. Now, another warning: never lie about drinking. People think minimizing helps. "I only had one drink." Then the body cam, receipts, witnesses, or test results tell a different story. False statements damage credibility fast. If you don't want to answer, invoke your rights instead of inventing explanations. And remember this: laws vary heavily by state. Some states handle implied consent differently. Some impose longer suspension periods for refusal. Some allow limited hardship licenses. Some distinguish between first and repeat refusals differently. The exact legal consequences depend on the jurisdiction and the facts of the stop. That's why this video is educational, not personal legal advice. If you are actually facing a DWI investigation or license suspension, speak with a qualified attorney in your area as quickly as possible. Because timing matters. In some states, you may only have days to challenge an administrative suspension, and many drivers miss those deadlines simply because they didn't realize the suspension process had already started. So let's bring this all together. The DWI mistake that gets licenses suspended fast is not understanding implied consent laws and reacting emotionally instead of strategically. People confuse voluntary roadside tests with official chemical tests. They talk too much, they consent unnecessarily, they argue, they panic, and they accidentally hand the state evidence before the case even begins. The safer framework is simple. Stay calm, keep your hands visible, comply with lawful commands, do not make sudden movements, do not consent to searches, do not argue on the roadside. Clearly invoke your rights when needed. Ask for clarification if you don't understand what test is being requested. And if necessary, say, "I choose to remain silent. I want to speak to a lawyer." Those phrases work because they are clear, respectful, and legally significant. They reduce confusion, they reduce escalation, and they help prevent you from becoming the strongest witness against yourself. Because during a DWI stop, the biggest danger is often not what the officer already knows, it's what drivers volunteer under pressure. And in the next video, we're breaking down another major police encounter mistake, the one sentence drivers say during traffic stops that can accidentally give officers permission to search the entire vehicle.